Hello and welcome to the Rock Your Voice podcast. Vocal coaching tips that will transform your voice, interviews that will inspire, industry guidance, and so much more. Without further ado, let's get on with the show. On today's episode of the Rock Your Voice podcast, I'm joined by Meghan Patrick. She is CCMA winner of Female Artist of the Year. She's a Juno winning artist. She's an amazing performer. If you ever get the chance to see her live, please do it. But this episode is different to most of the episodes in the sense that we are not necessarily digging into Meghan's musical background, but we're exploring more the story behind her song, The Boy Who Cried Drunk. This episode is hugely personal to me, as well as obviously to Meghan, because we're sharing of our experiences of both being survivors of domestic abuse and domestic violence. As you can imagine, it's a pretty sensitive topic and the conversation does go pretty deep. So if there are little ears around, not only is the topic a little bit heavy, but it's also, there are some swears involved. So I invite you to come on this journey with Meghan and I with the hopes that sharing this conversation and this topic can help others, can inform others, and support anyone who is currently experiencing or who has experienced something similar to everything that we talk about in this episode. I've listed resources that may be of help to you in the show notes. If you are currently experiencing any of the situations that we talk about in this episode, please remember you are not alone in this. As you'll hear in the conversation, there's a reason why you're feeling alone and isolated, and you are not. There is help. There is a lot of light at the end of the tunnel, and we are here to share that with you. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. What I usually do is have just a fairly generic conversation about your musical background, because this is a podcast for singers, emerging artists. A lot of actual artists use it as well for all the voice technique stuff as well. So I usually do all of that, but because of your latest mission and the stuff that we talked briefly about at CCMAs, I wanted to see kind of, obviously I would love to touch on your music, your tour, everything that's going on, but I wanted to know how kind of deeply you wanted to dive into the story behind The Boy Who Cried Drunk and really share about that, if that's something that's important to you right now.
We can go as deep as you want to. I think, for me, I don't really do anything like half-assed,
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
I think what's really important for me about this song is not just to share my story, but it's to empower other women, to give them a voice, other survivors, to empower them and inspire them to share their story and to speak openly and loudly and take up space in their story, because one of the hardest things about domestic violence and situations like that is the not being heard, the not being believed, being questioned in your story, and like you do so much suffering in private and alone, because another part of domestic violence and abusive relationships is the isolation, and so I think if I can kind of lead by example and be brave enough to share my story, I just hope that it'll inspire a lot of other women too.
I wanted to say a huge thank you for coming on and for your honesty and for what you're actually doing right now, because this is something that I haven't shared actually personally on the podcast or really very much anywhere publicly. But we have similar stories. And for me, I was always like, how can I use my platform to speak up and how can I help other people? And I've never really had an opportunity as perfect as this, where it's like, this ties in so perfectly with speaking to you and to be able to raise awareness and to have a really honest conversation about the journey of domestic abuse and domestic violence, and to hopefully, if it helps one person or hundreds more, then not to say it was worth it, but the learning was worth it.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. There was something to take away from the situation, shall we say.
Yeah.
So How long ago did you write the song?
Honestly, not that long ago. I can tell you exactly when, actually. Because I should just know this anyway, because I feel like a few people have asked me. Let's see, when did I mean, it was only really like a few months ago. But yeah, it was something that like I had this idea. So I wrote it July 18th.
Okay. Fast turnaround.
Yeah, so I'd had this idea for a while, or I guess like kind of like a concept of it. It's one of those things where it was like I kind of was holding on to it for a while because I needed it to be the right situation, the right room, the right, like I just needed to feel like I was ready to like go there.
Yeah.
And when I walked into that it was interesting because I wouldn't have thought that would have been the day that I was going to write that song. Because one of my co-writers I'd actually never met before, and hadn't written with. So that was Jacob Hackworth, but Billy Dawson and I had written together before, and I walked in, I had no idea that I was going to write that song that day, and Billy started playing that guitar riff, and I just loved it. I was like, oh man, that's so cool. And so I opened up what I call my hook book. I've got like a note in my phone where I write down like song ideas and stuff. And I looked at the idea and I thought, I don't know, I just had this feeling. I'm like, this is it. I think this music feels right. This is like inspiring me right now. And so I was like, all right. It's like, Jacob, I know we just met.
It's all coming out.
I'm like, how do you guys feel about getting real heavy for a minute?
Love it.
And I told them this idea, and the idea was inspired kind of the story of the boy who cried wolf, right? And it was this idea because one of the things that's so difficult, abusive relationships, I mean, we know that like the statistics are, it takes on average most women 7 times to leave.
Yep. And that is huge. We have to pause there because I think that is where so much of the shame comes in. So,
yes, exactly.
You've told your friends once that it's shit, and you've gone back twice, and then you're like, do I even tell my friends the 3rd, 4th time?
Oh, you don't.
Yeah.
That's where the isolation comes in, because if you start telling people what's happening to you, that the people that love you they're going to be like, what are you doing? You have to leave. Yeah. And when you're not ready to do that yet, you just think, okay, I'm going to just tuck it away. If I don't tell anyone else, then I can ignore it, and I can just, stay in this cycle. And, when you think of the boy who cried wolf, I thought of like domestic violence survivors as kind of like the villagers that keep just running to the rescue of this boy. And he keeps saying, oh, it's a wolf, it's a wolf, it's a wolf. And it's not actually a wolf. It's him having his own issues and needing attention or whatever. And so that kind of reminded me of being stuck in that cycle of going back over and over again, because every time you try and leave, they're gonna gaslight you about the reality of the situation. They're gonna gaslight you about the abuse they've been inflicting on you, and they will try and frame it to where, oh well, you made me mad, or you pushed me to do this, or I only did it because I love you so much and I don't want to lose you, and and if you do this, like, you're gonna ruin my life. If you leave me, like, I'm gonna kill myself. If you leave me, and so now all of a sudden you feel like you're a bad person if you don't keep going back. And it made me think of the villagers, like they're like, well, there's a wolf trying to kill him, we have to keep going and helping him. And to me, in this story, the wolf is sometimes it's alcohol or drugs, and that's part of what is exacerbating the deeper issues. But the bottom line is, at the end of the day, it does go deeper. It's beyond just alcohol and drugs. There are deeper issues there that regardless of being drunk or not, because at the end of the day, for me, a lot of times it was usually when he was drinking, but the last time he abused me, and it was the most brutal physical assault, he was dead sober. Shit. And so that was kind of the inspiration. And I thought, because in my head, I was like, if I'm going to write a song about domestic violence, there has to be a nuance to it. There has to be something about it that can make it where it's still it's still raw and it's still real and it's hitting people the way that it should, but it's still palatable.
Yes,
You
yes,
know, because if
yes.
you just go in heavy, like, and start describing,
Right,
you know,
yes.
you have to do it in a way where it's musically a great song and lyrically a great song, and it makes people want to listen to it, and it doesn't scare them off of it because the topic is so heavy. But you also want it to have an impact.
Totally.
And you know, I'm really grateful for the guys in the room that I wrote it with, because they really kind of just took a step back and let me run with it. They really just, you know, gave me space to work out the emotions of it, and to tell my story, and they really left it to me to kind of steer the ship and make sure that it felt right to me. And so I'm very grateful to them for being there with me through that.
Amazing. That's so great. Yeah, maintaining the artistry behind it, but the impact of the message is just that's hard to do, especially when it's a really shit situation. It's really, really hard to do that. So yeah, you guys nailed it. You totally nailed it. How long did it take post relationship for you to be able to write the song? How long was that time difference?
I mean, it's been almost a decade.
Wow. Yeah.
And I have actually written other songs about it that I haven't released yet, and I probably will release at some point. It was one of those things, like, sometimes when I'm writing songs that are really kind of heavy and or, you know, heartbreak songs and stuff, it's like sometimes it's best to write it like right in the moment when you're really in it and you're really feeling it. But like things like this, you know, this isn't just a breakup. This isn't just a heartbreak song. This is a topic that requires a lot of insight and a lot of healing, and a really kind of delicate approach to the way it's done. Again, because it isn't just my story. It is so many survivors' stories. And so I wanted to be very careful in how I handled it, knowing the impact that it could have. And I think for me, I was able, because I've done so much work in therapy and all of these things over the last, you know, almost 10 years, to get to this place where, also, because I have to tell you, like, putting this song out, it has definitely stirred up some emotions in me. And I've had some really like heavy, difficult emotional days since releasing this song. And I have to shout out my manager, Randy, because she's just been my rock through it. And she's just been so incredible and so supportive of me putting out this song. And there's been a few times where I've called her just like sobbing, and like, because all of these women that are coming out and sharing their stories and messaging me and commenting, and, you know, it's just so overwhelming. It's like, on the one hand, I'm glad that so many people are connecting with this song, and that it's taking what's been kind of a taboo, not openly talked about topic, and kind of forcing it into the spotlight to be talked about. So I love that part of it, but it's also like really heavy to realize, even knowing the numbers and the statistics, how many women there are out there who are dealing with this. And it's like my empathy muscle is just like working overtime, and my need to like want to protect people and protect women is just like working overtime. And I just like, I want to save everybody. But then, you know, my manager, again, like, she's just been great at reminding me, like, hey, you know, there's been multiple women who have reached out and messaged you or commented since you've released this song to say that they have left.
Yes.
And that's
it.
Sorry.
That's all good. It's all good.
Like, it's just like worth its weight in gold, because I know how incredibly difficult it is to leave. And I remember, for me, I have a friend, my friend Marissa, and she had probably the most impactful moment with me before I left. And I hadn't told anybody, not a single solitary soul, what had been happening and what he had been doing, because I knew deep down that it was wrong. And I knew that the second I told somebody, that I was going to have to do something about it.
Right.
I was ready to do that. And one night we were at a wedding, and, you know, something had happened that had really set me off with him. and I was talking to her, and I don't know why, I just let it out, and I started telling her everything that had been happening. And this might sound harsh, and I'm paraphrasing what she said, but she looked at me and she said, Meghan, she's like, this is crazy. She's like, you cannot be with him.
Yeah.
She said, you cannot go back to him. And I mean, they knew he was like an asshole. Like, they knew he wasn't a great boyfriend, but they didn't know how bad it was, and she was like, Meghan, I have to tell you, I mean, I love you and I'll always love you, but like, I will lose all respect for you if you go back again.
Wow.
And that was very difficult to hear, but it was, for me anyway,
100%.
I thought about that, and it just made me realize, like, this is not who you are.
Right.
You are not the woman that stays. You are not the woman who allows someone to treat you like this. But it's like, but you also have to, it's a very delicate balance, I think, of helping someone leave, because you need that harsh dose of reality of like, hey, I know you've been living in this brainwashed, gaslit world that he's created for you. Yeah. But I'm over here in reality, letting you know, like, this is wrong. This is messed up. And if you loved yourself, you'd leave. Yes. And that was, for me, it made me realize, that is part of the problem. He's the problem, but the reason why I'm not leaving is because I don't love myself right now. I don't respect myself. Yep. Because he has dictated how I'm supposed to feel about myself.
Yeah. And it's a slow burn.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Because by the time people like your friend are aware, that's why it's so hard to see. And I was like you, I had a voice coach who was like my idol, my mentor when I was like 17, 18. And I found out that she had been in an abusive situation. And I was like, how? She's a fucking rock star. Like, how is that possible? And so I just couldn't fathom it until you're in it and you realize 6 months, 2 years, 5 years have passed, and you're like, where have I gone? Who am I? Yep. And it takes a long time to find yourself again. And like you say, even now talking about it, it's like, boom, that whatever, the chemistry in the body that remembers all that shit it's all still there. But you can. That's the whole thing, is that you can. But
well, and that was what I really wanted to, I think, part of what I wanted to portray in my message. And this was something that my manager had said to me, and she'd said, a lot, like, I have a lot of female fans. I have a large female fan base, which I love. I am for the girls, but she's like, a lot of women really like look up to you. They see you as like tough and brave and strong and independent. And I mean, I am all those things, but I also need these women to know that I am not bulletproof.
Yes.
And, and that there was a time where I was not any of those things. I was this just broken shell of a human at this time. Like, I had no self-love. I had no self-respect. I had nothing going on. I didn't have my career then. Right, I was living in a crappy basement apartment, working at the beer store, sorting empties, barely paying my rent.
Yeah.
And so it just, I need all of these women out there to understand, especially the ones that are still in it, that this happens to the bravest and the strongest and the most independent, the most intelligent of us. It is not getting stuck in a relationship like that is not a judgment of your worth or your character. It is not a judgment of how smart you are or how tough you are.
Right.
It's just not.
Yeah.
It's actually, more than anything, it's a judgment of your heart and your empathy and being someone who feels deeply for other people, and who also, I know for me, I mean, I've got a bit of that sort of savior complex. I want to save everybody. I want to help everybody.
Yeah.
I never want to be responsible for someone feeling bad. I want everybody to be happy. I want everybody to feel good. I want everyone to feel loved. And so when you are that type of person, and that is your natural personality, when somebody who is extremely good at manipulating your emotions and using that to their advantage, you don't get sucked in because you're stupid. You get sucked in because you have a heart.
Right. Yeah, totally. You
know?
want to do the right thing. You want to help someone, support someone, do all of these things. And like I said, you turn around 2-3 years, I don't know, 6 months. It's obviously different for everyone, but you turn around and it's like, what's happened? It's just mind blowing. And your empathy of wanting to help people, it's wild. I had my ex's not current, well, I guess his now ex, but she was reaching out to me all just last year and was like, how do I deal with this? How do I get him out of the house? How do I get him away from my kids? How do I do this? And I'm just like, I felt bad because actually I had reached out to his previous girlfriend before me. And at one point she was like, you know what? I can't do this. I can't help you. And I was like, okay, well, thanks for the help, and felt kind of pissed off. But I ended up having to do the same thing to the next girl and be like, you know what? I know you're going to go back the 6-7 times and I can't be here for you because So it's a tough old journey. So how long, I keep asking you, like, how long till this, how long till that? Because I know some people who are in it are like, when is the fog going to clear? When am I going to find myself? What does this process look like? And obviously it's different for everyone, but how long was it until you found your husband and you found that security and relearned what a normal healthy relationship is? Because that's a journey too.
Well, so, I mean, the good news is no, it doesn't take a decade. I mean, I would say, I will say this. One, I am extremely grateful for the police officer that worked my case. He was incredible.
Right.
And honestly, a large reason why I finally worked up the courage to come forward and make a statement and have him arrested. And it was over a year process, to go to court.
Oh God, yeah, it takes forever.
It takes a really long time, which is incredibly difficult because it's just this dark cloud hanging over you, on top of the fact that I also was like in fear of him. After he was initially arrested, he broke his restraining order a month after, threatened to kill me in front of a room full of people, threatened to burn my house down, stalked me. I lived in fear. My anxiety was through the roof. It was awful. And thankfully, I was able to get into a therapist, and that definitely helped. Also, I wanted to share this.
Okay.
This right here, The Gift of Fear by Gavin DeBecker. My therapist had given me this book when we first started working together, and I can tell you right now, I think every single woman should read this book, regardless of whether or not you've ever been in an abusive relationship or not. Every woman should read this book.
Okay.
It's so incredibly insightful. And it's like, what really helped me was understanding like his tactics of abuse and manipulation and gaslighting. I mean, it's like in bulletin points.
It's wild. Sorry to interrupt, but it is really wild how it is when you compare with other women and you talk with other women. It's like, is there a textbook out there that they fought? Because it is literally like, okay.
I'm telling you.
It's just wild. And I'm like, I'll talk to people. I'm like, okay, you're at step 3 of the crazy. Okay, you've reached level 5. It's like, but then you know what's coming it's just screwed because
and once for me anyway, and I think everybody is different, but like for me, being able to kind of work through things like logically and almost scientifically in a sense was very comforting and helpful for me, because it was like, oh, okay, so like he's not like a special case, you know what I mean? Like he is textbook this X, Y, and Z, and for whatever reason, like seeing it in writing in a book that is a #1 national bestseller that's been read by 1 million people, it gave me a little bit of comfort in knowing that like like just understanding the mentality of him and why he was doing what he was doing and why it works and why I'm not like an idiot or weak or, you know, any of the things that I felt about myself after getting, you know, the shame and the guilt and all of that. Like it really helped to alleviate that when it was put into like almost clinical terms.
Yes, and validating too, right?
Yes. And so that was a big part of my recovery. Again, is just therapy. And sadly, I recognize that is just not available to everybody. That's not an option. Not everybody has those resources. And if that is the case, please, I beg of you, pick up this book.
Okay.
And also, I think a lot of what really is important is, you know, it's working through the trauma and the abuse itself and the triggers and the anxiety and everything that comes with it. But I think one of the most important things you can do is find a way to just really build yourself back up and work on your own confidence and your self-love. And one of the things that really helped me was boxing.
Nice.
You know, I've always been a high energy person and like very athletic. And so, you know, having that outlet has always been helpful for me mentally outside of, you know, the abuse and everything. But I felt like, you know, boxing or self-defense, if you can get into like a lot of places like you know, YMCA or, you know, local places will offer things like that for pretty cheap. And it just, you know, for me, it made me feel strong again. It made me feel confident in myself. It was an outlet for just my anger and my emotions and everything I was feeling. I could just take it out on a heavy bag. Nice. And I think for me too, like one of the things that I carried around with me a lot that really was difficult to work through was the fact that I felt like a lot of shame that I felt like I didn't fight back when he was abusing me. Okay. And I, you know, looking back now, I recognize that was probably could have saved my life. Right. I don't know. But there's also this feeling of, I personally, I hated the feeling of feeling like I just cowered in a corner and was weak, you know? And so going into a gym and boxing and like building that strength and even just feeling like, you know, you could defend yourself and you just feel stronger physically and mentally is incredibly helpful. And then also my faith. You know, I honestly, I found my faith because of that relationship. Amazing. Because I was so broken and desperate to just feel safe again and feel like there was anybody in the world looking after me. And, you know, and when I started praying and talking to God, that was, it brought me a lot of peace and it brought me a lot of comfort. And so I think, you know, you have to figure out a way to heal all of these pieces of you mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Sorry, I feel like you asked me a question and I got
I love it. I love it.
Oh, okay. So I remember what you had asked me initially. Getting to the place of like being happy again. So I have to say, you know, yes, I did end up in a wonderful, safe, happy, beautiful marriage. But I do have to say there was someone else that I dated after that relationship that was honestly very pivotal in my healing. He was incredibly kind and kind of like the polar opposite of what I had come from. And so, and he knew of my history. He, in fact, he sat in the courtroom with me when my ex was convicted. And, you know, it turned out that we weren't right for each other in the long term, but I'm incredibly grateful for the ways that he healed me and kind of helped me trust men again, let someone in, understand that not every man is going to do that, and that, you know, there are good, gentle, kind men out there. So I'm very grateful to him. And then it definitely helped me when I moved to Nashville. That was, I think, another really big pivotal thing for me, because I needed a fresh start. I needed to get out of the small town I was in, because also I grew up in a small town, and it was like when everything happened, when he was arrested, it felt like everyone in the whole damn town knew. And I felt like everywhere I went, everyone was talking about it, and maybe they were, maybe they weren't, but that was certainly how it felt. I mean, I know that a lot of people were, and, you know, people picked their sides and they had their opinions, and people I thought were my friends just didn't bother to get my side of the story, you know? And I mean, at the end of the day, if you want my side, it's It's all there in the court documents, and
right. That's just it.
The conviction he got of assaulting me. So, you know, if you want to doubt me, it's all right there in the court documents. But when I moved to Nashville, I did feel like I got a fresh start, you know, and I got so much stronger, and it felt like I was able to kind of start all over again, where nobody knew my history and nobody knew that part of me. And so that made me feel a lot stronger. Like I could just kind of let that part of myself go and kind of leave her back in Bowmanville and start as this new, happier, braver, stronger, self-loving version of myself. And, you know, I'm a strong believer that what you put out into the universe, the energy that you put out is what comes back to you. Absolutely. And I think that's why I was able to meet Mitchell and fall in love with him in a way that I wouldn't have been able to in years prior. So I think that's the other part of it too, is understanding that it is going to take time. And be patient with yourself, give yourself grace, you know, in understanding that like there's a lot of triggers that you're going to have to work around and work through, and making sure that if you are in a place where you feel like you're ready to have a new partner, that you share that with them, and that whoever you are with is supportive of that. And, you know, I'm very grateful to my husband. He knows all of my history, and he's been incredibly supportive and just been so good at just showing me that I don't ever have to worry about that again. Now my ex might have to worry about him if he ever meets him, but
I love it.
But I think that like what I want women to know, and I have a song coming out, another song coming out this Friday.
I'm excited.
Called God and a Good Man. And you know, this song is kind of like part 2 of Boy Who Cried Drunk, you know, because I want there to be hope for these women too. That, like, if you can get out and you can do the work on yourself, because here's the important part. You have to do the work on yourself, or you will end up right back in it with someone else just like him. And I kind of slipped myself for a minute before I met Mitchell, and almost ended up right back there. But I saw the red flags, and this time I said, nope, not doing this again. You do not need a project. You need you do not need to save him or fix him. You need a fully fucking grown man who has his shit together, and who, you don't need to be perfect, but he needs to, you don't need to fix him.
No fixer-uppers.
No more projects. But again, like, you know, there are a few difficult steps. 1, the actual leaving. 2, the actual leaving and staying gone. And then 3, being aware and taking those lessons with you, and those little, that voice in the back of your head that you ignored for so long when you were stuck. You have to learn how to trust your gut again. And that is one of the most difficult parts of the recovery process, is learning how to trust your gut again, because you have literally been brainwashed and conditioned by this abuser to not trust yourself. Because the only way that they can control you and get you to stay and essentially sustain this abuse is if they warp your reality of what's happening. And so that is going to be one of the toughest things, is just rewiring and learning how to trust yourself again, so that when and if, because sadly you probably will meet another one like that. And you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared to be aware of those red flags and leave before it's too late, before you're fully in it. And just understand, again, it's like your gut. I cannot express enough to women how valuable your gut feelings are. They are very real, and they are not wrong. And if there is a feeling, like if at any time in your relationship you have like a sick feeling, if you are feeling anxious all the time in your relationship, that's not a healthy relationship. I can, like, people talk about love and butterflies and it's the highs and the lows and everything. I can tell you, as someone in a really happy, healthy relationship, it doesn't feel like that. You know what it feels like? It feels like the sun on your face. It feels like taking a deep breath and just peaceful. That's what it's supposed to feel like. It's not supposed to be the ultimate highs and the lows. I'm not saying we're perfect all the time. We have our struggles, just like any relationship that is healthy, but like, you need to, it's retraining yourself to understand what a healthy relationship feels like.
Absolutely.
And it's hard. That's a hard thing to do.
For me, I must have heard probably like I want to say 5 times a week, was like, relationships are hard. That was what was drilled into me, was like, this, you like, honestly, you have no, this,
not really,
exactly, right, totally. I'm like,
they're really not.
Like, and it's wild because, and I always have to clarify when I talk about the ex, because I'm literally friends with every single one of my other exes, so I'm always like, if you need to ask, please ask me, because like, I've got some great exes, and if you don't know the one who was the one, then please let's clarify that. But yeah, he was always like blaming me for expecting the unicorns and rainbows, and being like, you don't understand what it takes to make a relationship work. This is why your relationships have all failed, and this is blah blah blah. So yeah, it was always that. And yeah, it's tough, man. And the leaving part as well, I don't know if it was the same for you, but for me it was more getting him out of my house versus me. So, and I know so many women are in that situation where it's their family home, it's their children, it's their, where do they go? Like for me, I was sleeping in the back of my car with my dogs. It was just, like, what the hell? But yeah, so it's hot, it's fucking hard, but there is happiness. And finding a man that when you have that strength, when you've done that work, and you find a partner who you can be honest with about your past, because it's so important. Like I remember early on when I was dating my now husband, and I love horror movies, but there was one movie with a scene that was just like, and I think if he didn't understand and I'd have kind of spun out the way I did, it would have been like, this chick's crazy. But he was like, oh my God, let's watch something different. So
yeah. Well, it's having a partner that is aware of like what your triggers are, and why certain things are, like why you do certain things. And like he knows, like I'm a very like jumpy person, and that like I startle easily, and that's a trauma response. You know, I also, like when we go somewhere in public, I cannot sit with my back to the door,
right?
Because I just feel like I need to always be, because it was so ingrained in me, especially for that like year and a half before he was finally convicted and we went to court and everything. He had already broken the restraining order, and I had been told by the police that if he broke the restraining order, he would go to jail until his court date. He went to jail after evading arrest.
Yeah.
He went to jail for one night, and he was released the next day with an additional charge, and probably pissed off that he was arrested a second time. And I'm supposed to do what
now? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Take the new restraining order you gave me and throw it at him if he comes for me. Like, no, you just have to, like, you have to just be aware of your surroundings constantly. I am aware of every time I'm driving, I know what vehicle's in front of me and behind me. I'm paying attention to every vehicle around me. When like I said, if I go into a bar or a restaurant, I'm going to sit with my back to a wall. I'm going to sit where I can see anybody coming in. And that's just like habitual now. I do these things without even thinking about it.
Right.
And that might seem like
no, it's not, because it bloody well happened to me. I sold my house and moved.
Be like me, just move to a whole other country.
Yay! I could do Nashville.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So this is obviously a standout thing here. That's a big takeaway, is the situation is different, but it's the same. Like, even from like the restraining orders, it's a piece of paper to some degree. And the process takes a lot of time, and the healing takes a lot of time, but there is support. And I didn't know that. I got a phone call one day, and it was oh my gosh, I forget the name now, but a group in Calgary. Phenomenal. They were like, you've just been flagged because the police have been to your house X number of times, and that's when we get activated to call and do a wellness check and everything. So I was like, okay, because by this point it's like can't talk to my friends or family because they're all just like your friend had said, like, we're done if you keep going back, or there's like too much shame to talk to anyone about it. Suddenly hearing that there was people with resources and people with the steps to help you out of this darkness and to help you out of this chaos. And so there is a process. There are people there that can help you, and I will do my very best to put as many links as I can in these show notes of the things that I know, and and the where people can find help. And because this, Meghan, thank you so much, because I want to talk real quick afterwards just to promote some of the good stuff and the amazing things and the joy and the happiness. But thank you so much for allowing me to have this conversation, because like I said, I haven't had the right time or the right place to share. And I think it's really important for listeners, because I probably have listeners, students, clients who are in it right now who have not shared with me, so it's really important that people do know that the people that you see on your day-to-day, or you respect or you look up to, or you're not weak or you're not pathetic because you're in this situation. It's like you said, smart, intelligent, caring people get into these situations. So God and a Good Man out on Friday, and I'm so damn happy you found a good man.
Oh God, me too. I gotta tell you, man, I see some of my friends that are single and I'm like, nope.
Good luck, my friend.
But yeah, this song is, I think this has just been such an incredible way for me to kind of finish off what has been truly an amazing year for me. The Boy Who Cried Drunk and God and a Good Man, I think are just two of the best songs I've ever written. They're two of my favorite songs I've written, and they're so special to me. God and a Good Man, I was inspired to write that. I remember it was the day. So I'd been wanting to get baptized for a while, but I was kind of waiting, for the right moment. And because that's a big step. It's a commitment, it's a commitment to God. It's a declaration of your faith publicly and everything. I take it very seriously, much like I take my marriage vows seriously. Yes. To me, this is taking a vow to God, to your faith. And I remember the day I just I'm ready. I want to do it. And so I had called, Mitchell's high school coach, Coach Tillman, he actually had, he officiated our wedding. He married us, and he's a wonderful man with a wonderful family, and just such a great person and resource to, talk to. And so I had called him and I said, hey, I'd like for you to baptize me. And I want to do it in the river. I want to do it out in nature, because that's where I've always felt closest to God. And he said, okay, leave it with me. And he found this beautiful farm where we got to where I was baptized in front of family and friends. But I remember that day I was actually going to write with two of my best friends, Dallas Wilson and Tranny Anderson, and who both also have a very strong faith and have been a big part of my journey. I mean, we've had so many great conversations about God and faith. And so, and Dallas also happens to be one of Mitchell's best friends.
Okay.
And I had this idea, and I just was all I could think about, because I had called Mitchell, and he was so happy. He was tearing up. He's like, I'm just so proud of you. This is amazing. And I really started thinking about kind of all the similarities between my relationship with Mitchell and my relationship with God. I mean, both of them, I didn't want to believe were real to start with. I had a hard time believing in both, because I had been abused by multiple people in my life that should have loved me, that should have been there for me, And so it was hard to believe that there was something this good and this pure and this real,
it's too good to be true sometimes.
And it was the way that, God didn't give up on me. He didn't write me off, and neither did my husband. When I tried to push them both away, they just kept showing up for me. And they both have healed me, God has healed me. My husband has healed so many of the wounds that he did not inflict on me. And I know that without the two of them, I would be a different person. I wouldn't be this woman that I am. I wouldn't be this strong woman that I am now without my faith and without my husband. And so I wanted to write something to honor those relationships. And so I'm really excited to get this song out. It's not just a song. Like for me, it's like, it's an experience. It's a moment. We did put some of the audio from my actual baptism at the beginning of the song. There's a beautiful like musical outro. I think it's one of the most beautiful pieces of music I've ever had the joy of creating. So I think it's a perfect way to end a really incredible year and to honor in the last year I got married and I got baptized, and I wanted to honor both of those things. So
I love that. That's so beautiful. And you're on tour too right now. Thank you for taking the time. You're just nonstop lately. So.
Oh no, thank you for rescheduling. The day we were supposed to do it, I was like, Randy, I'm like, I haven't packed yet. I'm so tired and I'm like distracted, and I wanted to be able to give you like my full attention and everything. So we're on tour. I'm back in Canada again this weekend. We just were out west, out in BC this weekend, which was amazing. Lovely. Next weekend I'll be in Toronto, London, and Ottawa. And then the rest of the year I have a bunch of US shows still with Landco, so I'll be touring, everywhere. I think Ohio, Texas, West Virginia, or South Carolina. I don't know. It's all on my website.
Oh, yeah. I will also put links to all of those things in the show notes too. Oh, amazing. I have to ask super, super quickly. I read on your website something about you opening for Aretha Franklin with your group.
I did. Yes, we did. It was the month. Sorry, there goes the dogs. I'm actually surprised we made it this long without the barking.
I love it.
Yes, I don't even remember how long ago that was, but yes, I had a band in university when I was at McGill, and we got to play Montreal Jazz Festival on the same night that Aretha was headlining, and it was pretty freaking epic.
Amazing.
Which also, fun fact.
Oh, yeah.
Aretha, rest in peace, we share a birthday.
Oh, good to see. Good stars aligning there. Good stars
aligning. We're basically like soul sisters. Yeah.
Soul sisters, iconic legends. There you go. Meghan, I cannot thank you enough for your time and your honesty and everything that you're doing with this song and everything that you're doing in music. And hopefully we'll be able to cross paths again another time. And I'd love, like, whenever you want to talk more about any of your music, I'd love to talk more. We'll dig into the lighter side of stuff and promo stuff and chat more about your background and your musical history, because I'd love to dig more into that one day too. But
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for giving me your platform and sharing that with me to share this song. I'm so sorry for what you've been through, but I love to see you thriving and happy, and I think that if this podcast reaches even one person that's going through that and it changes something for them, I think that's incredible. So thank you for the opportunity to share my story.
Thank you so much, and thank you to Randy as well. And hopefully we can keep in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Emma.
Chat soon.
Appreciate you.
Take care.
All right, have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And if you do leave a review, it's really useful to help others discover the show. You can also check out the weekly vocal workout over on Patreon. I'll leave the links in the show notes, where you can access weekly vocal training from yours truly and totally rock your voice. Thanks again for listening. Check out Rocket Vocal Studios on social and on the web, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.